Welcome back to the TrailBLAZER Pod. For the past few weeks, every morning, I've been kicking off my day with a cup of coffee and a chapter from the book Iconic Jewish Women. In this episode, I'm thrilled to sit down with the author herself, Dr. Aliza Lavie. She's a former member of the Israeli Knesset, public figure, social entrepreneur, writer, lecturer, and more. Dr. Lavie's incredible work in advancing women's rights and her contributions to the Jewish community are nothing short of inspiring. We'll explore the lessons we can learn from the remarkable Jewish women in our past and heritage. Let's dive in. I see you have your book behind you. I have your book right here. Yes. This podcast really started as an idea where I was thinking when I was 16, 17, I wish I had role models, kind of like your book, to look up to and like see that Jewish women are actually really incredible. When I messaged you about your book, I really meant what I said. Like, I'm really resonating with everything you write in here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You are somebody that is so accomplished and you really advocated and contributed to women's rights and women's leadership and in the Jewish community. But I'm curious if you can give us a little bit of a background of what you were like as a child, where you grew up, and what shaped you during your early years.
So first of all, I'm really happy to meet with you and with the audience, and regards from here from
Yes.
Israel. And in the beginning, I would like to say that our brothers and sisters still in Gaza, and our heart in Gaza. And I pray every day with all the Jewish in the world. I hope that our brothers and sisters will come back soon. And actually, it's part of your question, because from my childhood, I ask myself questions about identity and belonging. I
Mm-hmm.
grew up in an Orthodox family in
Yeah.
Tanya, but my emotional childhood, I grew up in Jerusalem in the Bukharian neighborhood together
Mm.
with my grandmother. My grandmother became a widow at age of 36,
Oh, wow.
and all the family, all the children and the grandchildren. We celebrated all the Shabbatot and the holidays all together.
Wow.
So it means that everything happened there in the Bukharian neighborhood. My
Yeah.
friend came from Afghanistan, 1920. And
Wow.
together with her neighbors, friends, they established a neighborhood. And my granny, she was well written, and she knew everything by heart and well educated, but she didn't know how to write and how to
Mm.
read. But she knew all the prayers and the Torah stories by heart. And I remember myself as a child asking question, how come that my granny knew everything by heart? And more I become older and familiar with the situation here in Israel. And more than that, later, when I went to the army and I understood
Mm-hmm.
that my private story, my life story, is not, what is going out. Because, as I said, I grew up with a strong matriarchalic family. And my granny, she went 3 times a day to the synagogue, and she ran the family, and
Wow.
she knew everything. And how come that in Israel I can be an officer? I was officer in the Israeli army, and I wrote my dissertation, and I was lecturer at the university and legislator. And I found that I'm not that familiar with my heritage as a Jewish
Mm.
woman, and not as situation that I don't know, etc. I felt that I need the knowledge, because we say, and it's not only an idiom, that knowledge is power.
Yep.
If you really want to change, if you want to elaborate the situation, to answer yourself questions, because part of the understanding what is the next step, what is my mission in my generation, in our generation, is to become familiar with his heritage. Da
Yeah.
me'ayin bata, elan ata holech, where are you coming from, and where is the way? Actually, a lot of questions and awareness, and the gap between my grandmother's generation and our generation, that we know how to write and read, and you have
Yeah.
a podcast, etc., etc., and you can do this and that. But on the other hand, suddenly we find that we don't know and we are not familiar, and
Yeah.
more to ask, and why we are not familiar, and maybe we didn't want to ask.
I can really relate to that. I'm also at a point where I really want to understand where I came from. A lot of my grandparents were in the Holocaust and they've passed away a long time ago, so I can't unfortunately I missed the opportunity to sit down and talk with them, but it's something that I'm trying to, implement into my life is understanding a little bit more about my heritage. So I completely understand. I'm curious though, were you always a curious person or did you have somebody in your life, maybe like your grandmother, who told you that knowledge is power?
You see the pictures in my life. My mom, she came from Bucharest as a Holocaust survivor.
Mhm.
She grew up in a healthy family, and actually, it took time for her to understand that she is a Holocaust survivor. She grew up with a nanny, and when this war was started, so the nanny took her and the family later to the forest, and actually, she spent their childhood there in the forest.
Wow.
Of course, it was a lot of issues and problems, etc., etc. And she was sent to Israel by herself at the age of 12, and to
Oh
be,
my God.
here alone, together with a lot of children that came from all Europe, and to start your life alone. Her parents joined
Wow.
her later, 8 years later, and she met my father. My father is a Sephardic,
Oh.
and they were one of the first couple that the Sephardic and Ashkenazic, and my grandmothers didn't even know how to speak each other. One spoke,
Different languages.
yeah,
Yeah.
Bukharian language, and the
Yeah.
one Romanian. So, I mean, I grew up in this mixed family and grew up with the history of the Jewish people.
Mhm.
I think you feel that you are in a miracle that so many generations ask, pray, and I'm
Yeah.
privileged to be born to a nation that we are free. When I went to Kita Aleph, first stage, so think about it. Israel is so young, and that
Yeah.
time we had a very good system of education. And when I think about our teachers that came from the Holocaust and understood that they have to build the country, they have to build society. There are a
Yeah.
lot of young children that need to grow up very, very healthy. So I admire these people, in my age now. I remember my mom and my father as I mean, I didn't understand. More you become older, and you
Yeah.
have your own experience, and children and grandchildren. Not least that in our generation, I think that we have our missions, and
Yeah.
it's not less easy when we see what is all going on, and even in subjects or issues that we thought that, hey, it's okay, we passed them, and yeah, and well, for example, me too. I legislate many legislation. I represent the Israeli Parliament in Europe Council, United Nations, and suddenly, we
Yeah.
understood that me too, unless you're a Jew. So
Exactly.
what is that? How come again?
Yeah. I remember thinking before October 7th, like I couldn't relate to the Holocaust and what my grandparents went through because as a kid, again, if everything seems fine, then you don't understand the weight of something like that. So I get what you're saying. I want to get into your career. There's so much to talk about, but I'm curious about you founded Kolech. Is that how to pronounce it?
Kolech, yeah, I was
Kolech. Okay.
part of the group actually, yeah, Kolech. If you're familiar with Jofa in the States, Jofa is an organization that was established by Orthodox women, and the idea that Kolech follow, and Dr. Hannah
Mm-hmm.
Keat and other women, we were part, from the beginning, and this organization represent us as Jewish women that asking question, what's happened? What
Yeah.
happened in this public sphere? Why we can't learn Gemara in high school? What is all about? Why is this and why is that? And more we become, deeply involved in understanding many, many issues, and start learning and open the books, the closed books that were closed so many years for women, and things became, open to us, we found a lot of answers that you ask yourself, why we can't do this, or let's try. I remember myself, age of 16, asking questions about the blessing in the morning, what it means שלא עשני אישה. I mean,
Mhm.
why is that? And I felt uncomfortable with this blessing. And when I ask questions, so people say, "Oh, Aliza, again, you ask questions." But
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
started my research, the previous book,
Yeah.
20 years ago, Tfilat Nashim, a Jewish women's prayer book. It's a collection of prayers. I'll speak about it later, I'm sure. But I found very ancient book from the 15th century, women's prayer book from Provence. And there, 15th century, not
Yeah.
21st. And there it was another version for
Wow.
this baracha, to make me Israeli, or other, suggestions. So it means that women before me didn't feel comfortable with this bracha, with this suggestion of prayer. And more I learned, I understood that rabbis and spiritual leaders that were aware of this, they suggest other,
Wow.
you know, other opportunities to say the bracha. So I'm not talking about our days or 100 years ago. I'm talking from the 15th century.
Wow.
And you can go to the Rare Room in the JTS in New York, or come to Israel to the International Library, and you'll see small books of prayers for, especially for women, with this tradition nosach. So how come that it's not in our Sidurim, and why is that? And what's
Wow.
happened? And more I ask questions to myself. I said, okay, you don't find answers. And when you go to the library, you can't find, because even researchers used to think that women didn't write, and
Mhm.
didn't do this or that, etc., etc. And I said, I have evidences in my hand. What is going on?
Yeah.
And I did what I suggest always my children and my students. If you can't find answers, and you feel that something's not going like you think it should, go and make your own research. Go and make your own journey to find answers.
Yeah.
Nobody will do it for you.
Yeah.
And that's what I did, and that's everything started.
I love that advice. We're not really taught that even in like school, we do the research that is going to apply to our paper, right? And we don't always go out of the box. And a lot of us are curious, but not a lot of us do anything about it. So I just find it really interesting that even at such a young age, you took the initiative and you weren't just fine with the answers you were looking for. It's really cool. There's a lot to learn there. I'm very curious though if there was like a moment you said in an interview when somebody was asking you about kolech. I'm gonna quote you, okay? You say, "I always assumed that's how it was for everyone, that a woman is active and respected, and her opinion is sought after. But then I met the real world and I saw that things were completely different." So I'm curious, was there a moment where you saw this, or was it a bunch of different things that made you realize this?
The first time that, actually, when we established Kolech, we thought about the issues that I mentioned right now, about agunot, and
Mm-hmm.
about Gemara for women, and about women in the rabbinical court in Israel. By the way, I started with this issue as a social activist, and my
Mm-hmm.
first legislation in the Israeli parliament is to have women in the committee that choose the rabbinical court.
Wow.
But come back to your question, I didn't realize and understand
Mm-hmm.
that there is a sexual harassment in the religious society. And when
Mm-hmm.
two women came to us because
Oh,
they
wow.
was attacked by very famous rabbi here in Israel, and nobody believed them,
Yeah.
and we didn't even know them because they were part of ultra Orthodox community. We are Orthodox, but they
Yeah.
and still belong to the ultra Orthodox community, and the rabbi
Yeah.
was ultra Orthodox community. And then they came to us, and
Yeah.
I mean, on one hand, it was part of our agenda. On other hand, when your sister asks for help,
Yeah.
you should hug her and give her help. And we didn't even have a name to this problem.
Wow.
And at the beginning, nobody believed us. It was a very difficult process. I'm talking 25 years ago.
Wow.
No committee, no one to speak with. The
Yeah.
court was a mess. And in Israel, we, thank God, have a legislation that open for another alternative, like a committee in the organization, or a way that women, will, or young adults can give testimonies in another perspective. But that time it was another
Wow.
situation. And actually, I established the first time committee in the organization of Kolech that deal with this issue, and the price was very, very high at that time because many of the rabbis didn't want to help us.
Mhm.
The organization at that time, I mean, I was part of a university, and my colleagues also, and always when you
Wow.
break the ceiling, you pay price, and you have to be aware of this because there are always prices. And in your life, you have to decide either you want to make your own tikkun olam, to
Yeah.
change, to have a better world for you and your sisters and your children, or you say, okay, it's not my business. I'm going to pay price. Maybe when I'll be a professor and I
Right.
have, my salary every month, etc., etc., I'll do things. And that's part of my colleagues said. And I'm not blaming. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that there are always prices in your life. So I think, and
Definitely.
for that time, and we change and we open the committee, and later become a big committee from that now it's well known in Israel, takana, that when people feel that they don't want to go to the police and give testimony, and then etc.,
Mhm.
etc., there is another way, to get a help. But I'm talking years ago. And actually,
Yeah.
since I'm so that people that I believe that they should be part of it didn't want, I I ask questions and I say to myself what I'm going to do. What
Wow.
I'm going to do to first answer myself, and more than that, to ask what other women did. And just, in Hanukkah, I gave several lectures about Judith, Yehudit.
Yeah.
Nobody speaks about,
Right.
what it's all about in Hanukkah, and why women are part of the miracle, are part of the holiday. And in Hanukkah, women allowed to light the candles, and all the house, all the organization, whatever, they can, להוציא
Yeah.
לברכה, they can, and it's a halachic issue. So what is all about? What it means swim?
Right.
And when you speak with the people around, Hanukkah, Maccabim, I mean, story, okay, war against the Yevanim, and the Greek people, and the Maccabim, and it's a cultural issue, etc., etc. But more when you understand and see the evidence. So who is Yehudit? What's happened that time? Why women were involved? And again, it was, I don't know if you're familiar with all about, but it really was sexual harassment against women, and
Wow.
women decided, yeah, enough is enough. We are going to finish with it.
Yeah.
So I think that when you become familiar with your history, it's not a journey of history. I mean, for me, Judith, Henrietta Zold, Golda Meir, Donna Grazia, and other women, they support me. They give me. I mean, when I
Yeah.
become, legislator, or even officer in the army, I mean, we are the first generation to do things like that. So
Yeah.
I want to learn. And
Right.
and when you're familiar, after I read. Henrietta Zold biography, I was 50, and I was shocked that I wasn't familiar with her amazing life story. Because Henrietta Zold, I think she was okay. She was the El Hadassah and a little
Yeah.
bit that and that, okay, the children and this and that. But wow, what
Yeah.
a life story. What she did in the age of 18. She was amazing. How she started everything.
Yeah.
That's organization. And more you become familiar with, you understand that you have a lot of sisters around you, and you are not alone. And in
Yeah.
our generation, it's really, really important to understand, my sis, that you are not alone.
Yeah. You said a very important thing that ties back to the podcast is about the price you pay for breaking ceilings and doing something, taking a path that no one has. The stories that I share on here are women who are doing that. And I always just say, thank God someone's doing it. Someone's paying the price. I know it's hard, but if we didn't have people like that, like those two women you were talking about wouldn't have anywhere to go. So thank you for being one of those people.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
also we need to understand that there are a lot of support group, and if sometimes in your life you feel that you need help, it's not
Yeah.
something that you should ask for help.
That's something I'm learning. I have a very hard time with that
Yeah.
personally. Yeah. But we learn. We learn.
And in the past, I mean, when we think about the women's circle, so actually in the past, I remember the day that I legislated the legislation for women that lost their babies.
Mm.
And,
Mm.
and now, thank God, in Israel, the situation is that you get, if it's after some weeks, so it it's like the situation that you can ask for, rest and help, etc., etc. And
Mm-hmm.
like this, it was okay. She lost the baby. Okay, she should come back to work, and nobody pay attention. No,
Yeah.
no, it's not like this, and we changing. And if it's happened, and when it's happened, you can't put women that lost her baby in the same room with women that have babies. How come?
Wow.
So it's a question of awareness. Now, thank God, we
Yeah.
have legislation. I passed this legislation, but it's a
Wow.
question of awareness. It's
Yeah.
a question of understanding the situation, and
Yeah.
more you become more sensitive and see the world with eyes that have the perspective, the other perspective, the gender perspective, what we call. But what I learned from this experience, that unfortunately in our generation, many women, especially after they got delivered, so they feel that they are alone, and
Yeah.
and especially after the first delivery, when first time you have a baby and
Yeah.
you are far away from your family, there is no community around you. And think about it, in the past, women were together. I mean,
Yeah.
there is no even, I mean, opportunity to have a situation that you are alone. And
Yeah.
in our days, and it's another story. I know in Israel the situation is much better because, for us, it's a mess if the children are not coming for Shabbat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know that in the States it's totally different story because of
Yeah.
the sizes and the distance. But think about it, that when we have a community, a strong
Yeah.
community, and the Jewish life and heritage is a community. You need 10 people
Yeah.
to start
Have a minion. Yeah.
every Romania and go, but it means much more.
Yeah.
You need a community to live your life together,
Yeah.
and I think this support and this understanding we need to bring back to our life.
I think also when you have community, you have examples that you're not really crazy, right? Because a lot of times when you go through something alone, you think that your feelings and emotions are not normal, and you don't realize that other people go through the same exact things and there's nothing wrong with you. It's just natural to feel those things. So when you have a community and people share their stories. And why I love this podcast so much is because people get vulnerable and they share the stuff that they don't normally talk about. And then I'm like, oh, okay, you also experienced this? Thank God I'm not alone, you know? So I think it's very, very important. And now we have social media, so we have to leverage that in a positive way.
Your generation is much better than us. Old people, they have the experience, they have the knowledge. And our
Yeah.
generation, they change. I mean, my grandchildren, I mean, they're preparing the presentation for me and all the,
Yeah.
the issues with the computer and
Yeah.
with the iPhone. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We all have something to learn from each other. Always.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So I want to pivot a little bit to your time in the Knesset. First, I'm curious, did you always want to get into politics? I know you were very involved in activism, but was this something that was on your list or it just happened for you?
No, it wasn't on the list, and it's still on the list. I'm not sure where. I'm not anymore with the party that I
Yeah.
used to be. But that time I thought it's the best
Yeah.
place because I mean the Yesh Atid party started as a center party, and
Mm-hmm.
we thought that it can go together, religious and non-religious, and people that belong to the extreme left side and
Right.
right and people from the settlements. If you ask my opinion, I'm still believe that it can work. I mean, of
Mm-hmm.
course, but that time with the situation and the leader of the party, he decided later that he's make a turn left, so it didn't work. But thank God, I mean, I had a very good time. I spent 7 years in the Knesset.
Yeah.
I ran the committee of status of women and gender equality, and later
Yeah.
other committees, and have many legislations, 30, and a lot of a government decision that change a lot of things that I work on them as a social activist.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, my books and even my last book, Iconic Jewish Women, I mean, it's continuation and
Yeah.
just tools change as a teacher in the university and writer and legislator and social activist and so it's the same area,
Yeah.
same field. Even this year from October 7, when we ask and not ask more than that, work for more women involved in the committees and in the area and the places that are making decisions. And we know the situation, by the way, all over the world. But in
Yeah.
Israel, now since October the 7th, other issues unfortunately came to our table, and our sons went to the army for a year. So I'm also a mother of a soldier, and
Wow.
two sons-in-law of them were spent here in the army, and it was really tough years. It's not easy, but please God, we'll continue and succeed. Yeah.
I like what you said about the mission hasn't changed, your why hasn't changed, just the tools. I feel like that way sometimes because I feel like my life has taken this and this and this, but when I look back at it now, everything connects, right? I'm just using different tools, exactly what you said. It's
I think that, you know, God created us different, and everybody
mm-hmm.
has his own blessing. And more you become familiar with the blessing and
Yeah.
with your mission in life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Meaningful. Okay, you can do this and that, and after have time to, but understand that, you know.
Yeah.
And this year I realized that you know, life is really short, and things finish like this, and
Yeah.
what is you really something that you want to do or to
Mm-hmm.
change or to give to the world, and inspire the world with your blessing. And
Yeah.
everybody has blessing, and actually this what I try to bring from the role models in the book, and especially
Yeah.
for young women that in our generation think that, you know, what they see in the media and especially in the social media, this is the right model and
Yeah.
only model, and it's not like this. It's not
Yeah.
like this, unfortunately, and I can't fight the situation, but I can bring another perspective and an experience from generations before
Yeah.
to at least give you the understanding that you can find your voice and go with your voice to make your own journey.
Yeah. This is a perfect segue. Let's get into your book. So you have it behind you. I have it right here. I cannot believe that I did not know like 90% of these stories. That's
Say
crazy.
it again, say it again, say it
I
again.
cannot believe I didn't know 90% of these stories. I read a story every morning when I have my coffee. And I'm
Oh,
just,
wow.
yeah, no, it's like my me time. I don't know what I'm gonna do when I finish the book.
No.
I'm gonna need a second book. I'm just shocked that I grew up going to Hebrew school my whole life and being involved in the Jewish community my whole life, and I don't know these people. Why is that?
Oh, tell me, why is that? And how come that you are not familiar? And believe me, in Hebrew, the version in Hebrew is
Yeah.
71 role models.
Wow.
Yeah, and so you should have the Hebrew because I know that you have
Okay.
little Hebrew, and then you can read, the Hebrew and the English. But
Yeah.
in the English less version is only 59,
Yeah.
and some of them are different from the Hebrew
Mm.
version. Like example, I want to add a figure that you're familiar with, like
Yeah.
Ruth Ginsburg, that you can't find in the Hebrew version, or
Got it.
Judge Rochi Fryer, or
She's
women.
amazing.
She's
Yeah.
amazing. I spoke with her. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's amazing. And also Deborah Lipstadt and other, of course, the mothers from the Bible, and other women that, like Henrietta, I mentioned, Golda Meir.
Yeah.
So you can find both, but it's opportunity also to start learning Hebrew, because if you
Yeah.
about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, so you can understand the Hebrew, and it's very good because it's another thing, that's something that we need to speak about it, the Hebrew language,
Yeah.
the common language that we have. Of course, I know that we are, speaking in English, and this is the international, but
If you want, we can speak Yiddish. I don't speak Hebrew fluently, but I speak Yiddish fluently. But I don't think people are gonna listen that much to this if I speak in Yiddish.
no, nobody.
Yeah.
But come back to your words. Yeah, how come that we are not
Yeah.
familiar with these women and what they did? How come that Osnat
Yeah.
Barazani, she ran a yeshiva in Kurdistan, 17th century? Who is Osnat Barazani? How come that she ran a yeshiva in Kurdistan?
Mm.
Who is her father that understood from the beginning that she is going to run the yeshiva because he didn't have sons, and he saw
Yeah.
that she is a Talmidah Chachama, that he knew everything by heart. And he said, don't ask her to make the dishes or to cook.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, and he spoke with her husband. Even, women like Esther the Queen.
Yeah.
Esther the Queen. So everybody, all the girls, and everybody wants to be queen like Esther the Queen. But Esther the Queen that didn't have a voice, half of the
Yeah.
Megillah. She's so passive. She was
Yeah.
taken to the palace, and then Mordechai gave her orders and say, don't say who you are. And suddenly,
Yeah.
in the middle, when Mordechai came and gave her the message, come on, you need to go to the king and to say this and that and save the people of Israel. And she said, suddenly, first time she said, come on, I'm not going. He didn't invite me. I can't go. And he said, if you are not going, so, someone else will you'll do the work, and you lost your chance.
Right.
And then she opened her mouths with orders. And in that moment, she became from passive to active, and she became a leader, a
Yeah.
halachic leader. And she told him, go and make fast 3 days. And it was a mess between them because he didn't want.
Yeah.
So first, she united the people of Israel that time, and more than that, after that she went to the king, and the rest we know. And in the end, when the rabbis didn't want to have her Megillah, this book, in the book of the books,
Yeah.
they didn't. And she said, remember me forever, remember me for generations. She wrote it in the Megillah, and in the end she succeeded. By the way, Yehudi that we mentioned
Yeah.
before also wrote a book, and this book is not in the book of the books.
Yeah.
So many questions to ask, and more we become familiar with the fact, for example, from still the queen, how come that she knew how to answer Mordechai,
Yeah.
and he didn't want to do fast 3 days because it was I don't have time to explain, etc. But it became
Yeah.
a halachic issue in
Yeah.
between them, and she convinced him, and she succeeded to convince him, and he said, "Okay, I agree." He said, "I agree."
Oh,
So she knew who
yeah.
told her, who gave her. So this change, you have to find the voice in yourself. Even if you think, oh, who will give me the room and the place, and I don't even know how to speak loudly.
Right.
But sometimes, and it's happened to me when I read the biography of Henrietta Zold at age of 50, I took a lot from her life story.
One thing that I found very interesting when reading these stories, and for people who didn't read it yet, you have the dates of them on the first page of that chapter. Almost all of them, their lives are so different than mine, but you can find so many similar things that you struggle with as a woman, even if it's, in the 1500s, which is unbelievable to me. The themes are all the same.
I think this is the point that I try to bring in these stories, that we are one. Think about Donna Grazia, that only in the age of 12 she understood that she's Jew. She
Yeah,
grew up in the difficult time, and she didn't even know that she is part of the Jewish
yeah,
people. And think situation our days. How
yeah,
many
exactly.
and yes, and like you said, when you read the stories and try to bring them back, and I hope that you and the readers will be ambassadors of our mother's stories and knowledge as tools to our days, because we need this knowledge for the day after, and we
Yeah,
need to bring back a lot of secrets that our mothers, that were very very clever, use, and somehow we lost it
yeah.
somehow.
The buried secrets. Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious why you chose to cater it to girls who are going to be bat mitzvah. Like, how did that come about?
When I was in my previous book tour in 2008 in the States, together with a Jewish women's prayer book, I met a lot of women. I had the opportunity, thank God, to become familiar with a lot of communities all over the States.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that a lot of women in the age between 70, 80 ask me to advise them how to celebrate bat mitzvah and to find them prayers for bat mitzvah. And in the beginning, I was curious what is going on, and I started to interview them. And they share with me the fact that they want to have bat mitzvah. They told me we didn't have part of them because of the Holocaust. The other part, the
Mm-hmm.
parents wanted to be like the American and throw away all the tradition. And some of them remember the big party that the brothers had.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, what is going on? I said myself,
Mm.
one day I'll start first learn how everything started with the bat mitzvah, who started it. Everything started in Italy, in Padova, 1860.
Wow.
And by the way, in Italy, still till our days, you can find the ceremony in the synagogue. Very nice ceremony before a Shavuot. The girls are coming with nice white dresses, and they celebrate together and say the Deborah song and the Ten Commandments, and very
Wow.
nice ceremony in front of the community. But that time I didn't know this, and
Mm.
I said to myself, if these women sharing me this, so maybe more women in all over
Right.
the world. So I took this opportunity via my book tour, and then I came back home to Israel and made another research. I said one day I'll write a book for bat mitzvah, because bat mitzvah, it's the last junction of being together, because unfortunately many parents think that, okay, we'll pay to the congregation till the bar mitzvah, but mitzvah, will be part of this, and then after they
Right.
disappear. And I know that in this year there is a process, and a lot of very amazing grandmothers are taking care and trying to do this or that, or to add something valuable
Mm.
to mitzvah. So, like, my granddaughter, the oldest one, she had a bat mitzvah 2 months ago. And
Mhm.
together with her, we sat and we thought about what she's going to do and whom she wants to speak about and where she can find her voice via one of the role models. And it was
Mm.
really interesting because I become much more familiar with my granddaughter,
That's so
even though that
beautiful.
I know that
Yeah.
I know her so well, but suddenly you have opportunity to speak.
Wow.
And with her sister, she's a dancer, so we spoke about Miriam the prophet, because Miriam, she
It's
brought
amazing.
first time the dance and the ability to lead with the body language, yeah.
Yeah.
And think about that. Why suddenly after the Song of Moses, Miriam came and started singing, and all the people, not only the women,
Right.
said, "Yeah, Vatan lahem Miriam." All the people answer to Miriam. So via that, we spoke about leadership and about the differences in between the leaders in the desert. And think about the major issue in our days: leadership, what it means, leadership, what does it mean, women's tools leadership. And via that you bring knowledge, at least to have something meaningful to the family, to the journey, to the opportunity, and also for the party. It's
Yeah.
okay, you can have 5 dresses, and you can have ice cream and DJ and all the other,
Yeah.
fascinating things that we see. But stop a moment. Why with the boys we have a ceremony every Monday and Thursday in the kotel? Even the
Yeah.
family that are far away from practical, I like the word religious and non-religious,
Yeah. Yeah.
secular. I don't want like to use it, but people that for them, and they're
Right.
coming and celebrate together with so many. And what about the girls? I
Yeah.
mean, we have ceremony, and please give a room, give time,
Yeah.
and we as women, it's opportunity for us to tell
Yeah.
our story.
It's interesting because I grew up like ultra orthodox, and we don't either do the bas mitzvah. It's
Yeah.
interesting that from both ends, it's not celebrated.
It's not a question of age. That's is the meaning.
Oh.
You can celebrate your bat mitzvah, invite your friends, find the role model that you like, and give a speech or make
Okay.
something with,
I love that. That's good to know to everyone out
yeah.
there. The thing I love about this book though is it's catered to girls who are a bas mitzvah, so it's easy for a 12-year-old girl to read it. It's also I'm 28 and I'm sure there are women that are much older than me that can sit and enjoy this book. So it's really for all ages, and I think not a lot of books are capable of doing that. So you did a really great job, and I'm going to be holding on to this book for a very long time. I truly mean that.
Thank you so.
Thank you. I want to ask you, looking at the bigger picture, how have you seen the role of women in Israel and Jewish communities evolve over the years?
I think that we are in the process. If Golda Meir will come and visit this podcast, she will ask, "Hey, what's happened? How come that from the 50 I legislate this legislation and that, and how come that still the situation is like this, and
Yeah,
now even one prime minister woman after me? What is all going on? I
yeah,
mean, why? Why is that?" We have a lot of issues on the table, and unfortunately, especially after October the 7th, we found that we need to work together. The situation in Israel, and by the way, in the world, are very tough for women, because I mean the political issue is behind the
yeah,
sisterhood, And we have to come back to our sisterhood here in Israel among the Jewish people and among the world.
Yeah.
Because political issues and fighting in between are not helping us. Okay, there is a lot of change, and we can blame the government, we can blame the this or that, but first, remember, women's circle, we need to support
Yeah.
each other, and we need to understand that nobody will do it for us.
Yeah.
And the achievements that we achieve and the generations before us achieved, women, a lot of women, as you see, and you said, honestly, I wasn't familiar, but see how many things. Think about Henrietta. Henrietta, she came 1904 to Israel, and all the group went back to the States, never come again. Never. Henrietta saw the eyes of the children in Jerusalem with the sickness, and she
Yeah.
said, I have to fix it. I have to find how to do it. And she found.
Yeah.
So she did a lot. We have to continue. And when you feel that there is no room for you, find it.
Yeah. I love that. That's so powerful. Something that I ask all my guests at the end. What does being a trailblazer mean to you?
To find your own voice, to
Yeah.
find your own voice and to find your shlichut and your tools and bless from God to make your own tikkun olam. And everybody has the mission in his life, and it's not only to be prime minister, believe me. The most important thing, the most important thing happened in small area, like we found so many brave women and men that we didn't even know them in Ofakim and in Nova and in the north, and people that still are not at their homes, but they are brave people that helping each other. And actually, so many people, are making our society much better
Yeah.
because they find in this year especially their voice.
Yeah. I have to say, I was very nervous before coming on here, and I don't get nervous a lot because I think you should be in your book. Maybe someone will write about you, but I'm very inspired by you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So that's why
Thank
I'm
you.
working now on technological project that can add more women because in the book it's a small
Yeah.
bit, and
Oh, I'm so excited for that.
yeah, so
That's
this is
incredible.
the next
Okay,
phase.
so more to come.
Yeah.